Dr. Pejham, let's talk a little bit about children activities and whether you see just overall a difference from children who are young and sedative in front of the television and the iPad and all that type of stuff versus children who are a little bit more out there and in the forest and, playing around. And again, the balance between is it all that clean out there? I mean, I have heard that, and that's not something which was around when I was around, at least not in my family, where you go and get your immune shot before you go to the forest. I always thought the forest was your friend, you know what I mean? And, me being a little kid, I grew up with a little axe and a knife and running around chopping woods and getting wet and coming home all drenched. And yeah, mommy kind of said, hey, let's get you out of those clothes and all dried up as fast as possible. But at the same time, she wasn't too concerned me getting wet. And I was not necessarily a very healthy kid. At the same time, I wasn't extremely sick either, I think. I don't know really what the balance is anyway. Tell us a little bit about how a mom should make sure that the child is active and yet not too active. Is a lots of television watching unhealthy, or really is that a trumped up charge which isn't true? Tell us all about it.
Yes. Well, it's been a trend for kids to be more inside, and that's been a urbanization of the streets. Kids just can't play out in the middle of the street anymore because the cars keep going back and forth. And of course, everyone's becoming afraid of, a lot of what ifs that they keep hearing on the news about this child, what happened to that one. Even though the numbers overall are going down, but still, media has a lot to do with exaggerating some of these dangers to kids, just kind of playing outside. So it is extremely important for kids to get out there and play in physical activity, just for not only for socialization, but also to just generally be healthy. It's important for them to exercise, and they can't get that inside the house. What happens with a lot of kids when they're indoors, they still gravitate towards the computer, social media, video games, playing video games or the consoles, and watch TV. And that's pretty much what they're going to be gravitated to if they're just left inside. And yes, they're quiet in the corner and not bothering anyone, but unfortunately it really affects them. And most of the studies that have been done show that children who spend 2 hours or more of this kind of entertainment had a lot of attention problems. And these are the kids that could not focus in the classroom, had to be medicated for ADD or ADHD, because nothing matches the level of excitement and stimulation of video games. Well, classrooms aren't that exciting, so these kids' brain were starting to get wired into not being able to focus. So in our academy, and what we recommend to our parents is for school-age children to really minimize it to a maximum of 1 hour and no more of any kind of those entertainments, whether it's video games, watching TV, or social media. And a lot of the social media needs to be monitored with parents, because there are a lot of abuse and a lot of exposure to kids that are inappropriate that happens in the world of the internet that parents do need to monitor, and not just put a kid in front of a computer and walk away. So that type of activity definitely needs to be monitored for the safety of the kids. So as far as other outside, what happens to when you're out there, whether you get wet or not, it's been shown by studies over and over that really doesn't make any difference of people getting sick. It's really exposure to viruses. If you have something in your body already, you're going to come down with it no matter what, whether or not you got wet or not. So, but that said, if things stress your body, like not getting enough sleep, or being bullied in the school or online in social media, any kind of a major stress to the body can lower immune system, and that makes kids more prone to coming down with illnesses.
Wow, so that's something I never thought of, and I'm not so sure I ever heard of and paid attention to, is that because children are playing a video game, which, yes, I mean, us adults cannot follow them anyway. We're way too slow, right? So it's very fast paced. And then they go and sit for 5-6 hours in a classroom with basically very little moving parts. I mean, it's just sitting there, right? And so so they look and act and maybe are hyperactive for that particular activity. I mean, we all can probably think of something which is too boring to us and something which is too much activity to us. We all have our level of tolerance in whatever it is. So actually, games, while on one hand it makes the kid being somehow reactive and being fast thinking, at the same time it may make him hyperactive, and then he cannot stand the normal activities, and thus of course will not learn anything in school because he can't stand being there. He has to engage his mind with something else outside of what the teacher says, and thus will fall behind in class and be hyperactive and be put on drugs, when really he doesn't have a drug deficiency in the first place. He just has too much of this television games. Unbelievable. I think that's wonderful data. Well, again, thank you very much for putting some light on there. So you do think that children should be, as much as possible, playing outside with real life, not only for mental stability, but also physical stability. The body kind of knows when he's used and stays more healthy right there and then, it looks like, right?
Absolutely. At least we recommend about an hour of physical activity on a daily basis.
And the best way to do physical activity, I still see it today on me, in fact more today on me than ever. The only time I do physical activity is if I can incorporate it with something I like go skiing or something. If it's going on the treadmill or doing any exercise at home, whatever that might be, it isn't happening very much. So if I don't incorporate it into life, it simply won't happen. And I don't think you can ask a 5 or 6 year old to too much to go on a treadmill and do push-ups and stuff. So just send him out and use the body any old way.
That's why the playgrounds are great. Playgrounds make kids have fun, and of course that's the only way you can get them to do. And then they're doing all the activity you can imagine with those playgrounds. So we just want parents not to be afraid of taking their kids to playgrounds. Let them just play. Right. The art of play is just being lost, unfortunately, and it's so important for not only their mind, but really for their bodies too. It's also important for growth. Kids that don't exercise don't have proper growth. Their immune system isn't as strong as it should be. So, overall, we can't really stress on the importance of physical activity.
So mom should definitely not scratch the playground because, there is 100 kids and a few adults, and I saw this one kid with an open wound, and I see this kid being a little sickly, and I don't want my kid to be playing there where somebody else touched that railing already and might be having all kinds of germs on it. Kind of, this is a lesser problem than not going out there in the playground and mentally and physically play. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Well, we say that, the benefit by far outweigh any kind of a risk of kids not, getting colds and coughs from the playground. And like I said, the benefit by far outweighs any kind of that kind of a risk.
Well, like my sports teacher when I was a kid said, what doesn't kill you, Helmut, he says, doesn't hurt. What doesn't kill you makes you only stronger. That's what he said.
Stronger. That's right.
Thank you.